Hello and welcome to the Community Square. I am your host, the Omoto. The recent decisions by the Edo State government to depose a traditional ruler has ignited a fierce debate, forcing us to ask a fundamental question as to who truly holds power over the crown in modern day Nigeria. Now, this is not an isolated issue or event. From Kano to Oyo, and across all of Africa, we see the same clash between modern political power and ancient traditional authority. And to help us unravel this complex issue, we have joined us today by a distinguished expert and legendary journalist, Tony Agulu.
How do you do? Thanks.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
inviting me.
And you're welcome to the show once again,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
OSS Adomo. It's a pleasure to have you as always, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. So the Edo flashpoint, let's start with the immediate catalyst right now. In the recent weeks that passed, the Edo State government deposed the Olososo of Ososo. From your perspective, sir, what is the most critical lens through which to view this event? Is it a primarily legal, cultural, or political issue, sir?
Of course, there have been some politics read into it. Like in your introductory remark, you talked about it being an event that has happened in Kano, it has happened in Sokoto, it has happened even in the east of Nigeria. This has kept happening. We can even think of Uganda, the Buganda of Uganda. So they become issues in which we have to decide as a people who takes preeminence. Unfortunately, colonialism is where this problem seems to emanate, where traditional institutions rooted in the people and in their culture and in their ancient history, they have autochthonous authority. And therefore, if you look at it, it is the people themselves who make a decision as to how do they install their king. Because the king holds a center point of their lives. If you like, there is no society that has held on without a leadership. And therefore, because of a leadership question, you must always defer to how the people have organized themselves culturally. And most of these places have always organized themselves with either they decide is hereditary, it is a primogeniture, it is a selection process, and these things depend on the culture of the place. Take like in the north, where you have an emir. And emir, the princes sit down and decide who among them has a leadership quality. It is not by hereditary principles, but by a select group of kingmakers who decide that this is it. In the Yoruba land, you find that you're looking amongst the princes. Who amongst them has what they call the Omoluabi, the characteristic that is distinguishable in terms of panache, decency, good history, good character, and it could be decided by some ruling houses. You can decide that rulership comes from house A or house B or house C, and they decide. If you go to Delta, you also have that kind of houses, and you decide from which house does this emanate. And there's an agreement over the years. Because of that, you want now to say to yourself, it is the people who institute the authority of leadership. And if that is the case, where does government come in? And this is one question we have not agreed on. I remember in my conversation with MOWAA the Dethronement, he said this to me personally, that he finds it very funny. Whenever governors come, they want to come to the palace and they tell you, a part and parcel of them, they want you to give them some kind of legitimacy. And so, if that is the case, why don't they also write the monarchy or the obaship into a constitution? And we have not even agreed on that. If you raise that question in Nigeria, you are going to get a million answers, and therefore it becomes problematic.
Yeah.
But why should it be problematic? Because characters have changed over the years of those who become kings. The characters seem to be either sometimes charlatans, sometimes they are people with dubious pasts, and sometimes there may be a few things in history that nobody knows now that could have happened maybe 60 years, 70 years, 100 years ago. And so there are people who remember. So when the elders get together, they tend to say, no, it can't be this. But I like to believe that we again look at it and decide for ourselves. Do we have the elders? Do we have the cultural history of the place? Do we write them in a modern times? Because this is now, we're moving towards analyzing it towards the modern times. Do we now write them into the constitution? And because these things were problematic in those days of the colonial empire and when the colonial governors were here, and the earlier histories of the military and Nigerian. So there was all this upheaval, the chieftaincy dispute, governorship, authorship, ascendancies, and so these things were becoming settled. So you either go back to the gazettes, look at how these things were decided, and then sometimes some of these cases go up to the Supreme Court. And it's a bit uncomfortable, I must confess, when cases of culture end up at the Supreme Council. Now, are you going to look at governance, authority of a clan, of a kingdom, from a jurisprudence point of view, or should it be by the people? I would rather that we look at how these things have been and establish it outside of political control. It is safer. What has happened is that we have come from either a very short history of constitutional rulership or constitutional democracy and move into the military, and from the military we're now back into, well, I can't tell you what exactly we're doing now. It's some funny sort of governance system where politicians are becoming more dominant in the system, and they want to dictate who gets what, and that creates a problem on its own. If rulership was not aligned with the political party, they tend to rake up a few things to make sure that you either toe the line or we remove you.
Yes. It's always a matter of interest.
So it becomes very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So that's what we're now finding ourselves. And in the case of the Olososo of Ososo, for example, some are saying it is linked with the old administration. And some are saying it is linked with he being a member of the board of trustees of MOWAA. So, is it that you're looking for your enemies? And so you fight your enemies, you fight the friend to my enemy is my enemy. So if that is where they're heading to, it's pretty awkward.
Yes.
And then it is disruptive.
True.
And there are two things that tends to be when politicians move into these things. You now find that the danger is that you disrupt the rhythm of the local place. Because if before they crowned like the Olososo, I'm sure they would have agreed on certain things.